Ever wanted to be a real-life superhero? Well, depending on your luck in the genetic lottery, you might end up with powers that make Marvel heroes look ordinary, like extra limbs, yoga-level flexibility, super memory, or even the ability to brew beer with your body. On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're revealing the weird diseases that actually give you real-life superpowers. No cape required. Number 10. Hyperthymesia, sometimes called total recall, is a condition that is exactly what it sounds like: the ability to remember an extraordinary number of personal experiences and the exact dates they happened, with remarkable accuracy. You'll never forget a password again. Witness a bank robbery, you'll be able to describe the robbers in exact detail. There's no question that you could do a lot of good with a power like this. People with the condition have described their memories as being like, quote, a library of VHS tapes. They can walk back through their own mind, pick an event, and simply replay their experience exactly as it happened. Sherlock Holmes would be jealous of this one. Scans have shown that people with hyperthymesia have a larger right amygdala and increased brain activity compared to those without. Two traits that might have something to do with it are a tendency toward fantasizing and absorption. In plain English, it's a proneness for daydreaming and deep immersion in tasks and experiences. Neurologists theorize that this kind of deep immersion in daily life might lead to memories being encoded deeper than the average person. But this isn't actually a flawless system. The disease gives you highly superior autobiographical memory, meaning that you'll have a perfect recollection of experiences that happened to you. Want to recall a birthday party you had when you were 5 with absolute clarity? You can absolutely do that. But it won't make you any better at remembering random facts that you read in a book. And without getting too dark here, sometimes forgetting is actually a blessing. Maybe you lived through some real trauma, or maybe you are just still cringing from that time you accidentally called your teacher mom in front of the whole class. Imagine being able to recall both with absolute clarity forever. That kind of memory turns a superpower into a serious curse. But it is still nothing compared to the potential risks of our next superpowered disease. Number 9. Imagine what you'd be capable of if you couldn't feel pain. In a lot of ways, one of the barriers to reaching the heights of human potential when it comes to raw feats of strength is avoiding the pain that comes with that kind of physical exertion. Maybe you could make yourself a cool black suit and go out fighting crime at night, seeing as you'd be able to both hit harder and get hit harder without feeling any pain. That is, in theory, something you could do with congenital analgesia, also known as congenital insensitivity to pain. It's a rare genetic condition that affects nociceptors, the sensory nerve pathways that detect pain. It basically stops your nervous system from delivering the message that you're in pain or are suffering tissue damage to your brain. Pretty cool, right? But this condition is actually a kind of poison chalice. You'd be shocked to know how easy it is to get injured during common daily activities, from brushing your teeth to cooking, and this could result in a lifetime of serious injuries and scar tissue. One person with congenital analgesia even did a Reddit AMA and was asked whether he ever used his inability to feel pain to do things other people can't. Here is what he said: "I used to when I was younger. Now that I'm older and I have to deal with a lot of scarring, I try to be more cautious. I've gotten a good sense of what things I can do, but would sting or hurt other people. So yes, my hands are the most injured parts of my body, and their mobility is lessened because of it. So I use my teeth to open things a lot. The scarring on my fingertips makes it hard to get a good grip on things. My fingernails have a tendency to bend backwards when I put too much pressure on them." Did that make you feel uncomfortable? Yeah, us too. Let's move on. Number 8. You may not be able to turn invisible or create force fields or manipulate fire to your will, and you definitely won't be made out of rock. But with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, also known as HEADS, you could at least become 1/4 of the Fantastic Four. That's right, this rare genetic condition makes your body freakishly flexible. Specifically, this genetic condition affects the joints and the skin. For the joints, you'll have a greater range of motion than most people. This will let you twist and bend your limbs in ways that are typically only possible when you're possessed by a demon, exorcist style. For some people, this is both a painless process and a cool party trick, but not everyone is that lucky. For some, joint hypermobility comes with joint instability, which means joints can dislocate easily, and chronic joint pain. The same is true for skin. People with HEADS will have more flexible, stretchy skin than the average person, perfect for living out your Monkey D. Luffy One Piece dreams. But this also means that if a wound requires stitches, the skin might not be strong enough to hold them. People with HEADS also experience a whole bevy of other unfortunate symptoms, extreme fatigue, digestive issues, dizziness, problems with internal organs, and even bladder control issues. But at least if you do have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you are at least not going to be alone, because a number of famous people also suffer from this one, including Halsey, Selma Blair, Sia, and pop superstar Billie Eilish. If you have hypermobility, you might also be able to make a lucrative showbiz career for yourself in horror movies. Some of the most coveted monster actors in the industry are people with hypermobility, which lets them make strange and unnatural movements. But horror movies won't do much for you if you suffer from our next condition. Number 7. An American woman codenamed SM is a true medical marvel. She suffers from the genetic condition Urbach-Witte disease. It's a condition so rare that there have only been 400 reported cases since it was first officially reported back in 1929. The disease is as hard to define as it is unpleasant to experience. Symptoms range from skin lesions and thickened mucosal membranes to the hardening of brain tissue around the medial temporal lobes. That last one is especially important here because suffering from Urbach-Witte disease in childhood is what led to SM experiencing bilateral amygdala damage and led to her nickname, the woman with no fear. It's right, because by some crazy miracle of nature, SM is unable to feel fear the way most of us do. She was able to handle snakes, walk through the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and watch clips from horror movies like The Blair Witch Project, The Shining, and The Silence of the Lambs, while feeling nothing that registered neurologically as fear. And the lack of fear isn't the only effect that this rare form of brain damage had on SM. It basically seemed to turn her into a manic pixie dream girl. Not only is her ability to feel and process negative emotions in general massively reduced, her capacity for positive emotions has actually been heightened. She is extremely friendly, kind, outgoing, and flirty, with a strong desire to approach others. However, her lack of fear has reduced her danger detection ability, and it's made her an absolute ace at ignoring social cues, especially when it comes to personal space, which she seems to have no concept of whatsoever, even when engaged in eye-to-eye, nose-to-nose contact with strangers, which honestly probably makes her at least a little awkward to know personally. But imagine all the cool superhero stuff you could do if you felt no fear due to traumatic childhood brain damage. You could even make your hero gimmick standing so close to the bad guys during crimes that they just get uncomfortable and leave. Or you could just pick them up and throw them away. This is very possible with the next superpowered disease on our roster. Number 6. Super strength is one of those classic superpowers, whether you're fighting crime or committing it. Can you really call yourself super if you can't carry people out of a burning building or pick up a car and throw it at some masked do-gooder in spandex? Myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy is a rare condition that can literally give someone abnormally high muscle mass. People with it typically have twice the inherent muscle mass of a normal person, especially in the thighs, calves, and upper arms. They also have increased muscle strength and reduced body fat to go along with it. This condition is normally recognized at birth because, let's be honest, it wouldn't be hard to pick an unusually buff baby out of a crowd. The leading theory is that this condition stems from mutations in the MSTN gene, which produces a protein called myostatin. Myostatin's job is to regulate muscle growth, basically acting as the body's built-in limit switch to keep muscles from getting too big, much to the frustration of gym bros all over the world. But when the MSTN gene isn't working like it should, you can get swole as all hell, especially if you work out. And on top of all that, this is one of the rare diseases on this list that doesn't actually seem to have any downsides. It is the "you're naturally ripped and you can get even stronger if you work at it" disease. This definitely dampens our faith in humanity, knowing that there are people with this condition out there, but not nearly enough vigilante heroes punching crime with their anomalous muscles. Hearing all this might have you thinking, I need a drink. But what if you were the drink? With our next disease, such a thing is possible. Number 5. Not every superpower needs to be about fighting crime or saving the world. Sometimes it'd be just as fun and interesting to be one of those B-list X-Men who have a power that's just kinda cool. And that's basically the vibe of Auto-brewery syndrome, a condition that turns your digestive system into your personal brewery. It's also known as gut fermentation syndrome, endogenous ethanol fermentation, and even the simple and elegant drunkenness disease. It's a rare condition that affects the way your body metabolizes carbohydrates. When carbs, like bread or pizza, pass through your GI tract, the cocktail of bacteria and yeast that cause the disease will ferment them into enough ethanol to get you drunk off your ass. So if your ideal evening consists of pizza and getting buzzed, maybe just save your money from the booze and eat more pizza. Your body will do the rest. So, what causes this disease that feels like it came straight out of a biolab in some vintage 80s boner comedy? It could be a number of things that give you such a messed up gut biome that your bodily fluids become a new IPA. Overuse of antibiotics, poor and extremely carbohydrate-heavy diets, and of course, pre-existing conditions like diabetes and inherent genetic quirks. But if you think life with this condition is a constant party, well, we're sorry to tell you that you've got a big storm coming. Getting drunk every time you dare to eat a sandwich can have some horrifying consequences. Just ask Mark, a 43-year-old whose Auto-brewery syndrome almost ruined his life. The smell of alcohol that oozed through his pores made his wife think he had a secret binge-drinking habit, putting stress on their marriage. His boss at work disciplined him with accusations of getting litty in the office, and in one case he was even pulled over and breathalyzed, making it look like he was dangerously over the limit for a DUI. If this hadn't led to his ABS diagnosis, it might have had his entire life collapse around him, and he might not have even known why it happened. Well, that was supposed to be fun, but it ended up being depressing. Let's go back to another one that could work great in the war on crime: fighting on the side of crime. Number 4. Back in the 19th century, crime fighting was changed forever with the introduction of fingerprinting in police investigations. Prior to that, if someone hadn't witnessed the crime or the criminal didn't have some obvious motive, the chances of catching the bad guy were pretty slim. Fingerprinting changed the game, and it meant that criminals needed to be a lot craftier to avoid getting caught. Well, unless they had Adermatoglyphia, a genetic condition that leaves sufferers with no fingerprints. The scientific name for fingerprints is dermatoglyphs, and it's these distinctive swirling patterns that form the cornerstone of both criminal investigation and biometric data tracking that are said to be unique for every person on Earth. But people with this insanely rare condition have perfectly smooth fingertips, meaning that they are both immune to fingerprinting if they commit a crime. Oh, and they'll need to manually put in their code into their phone if they want to unlock it. For the Sarkar family in Bangladesh who share this hereditary affliction, it's become a real pain. Fingerprints actually form a surprisingly central part of bureaucracy in Bangladeshi life. They're required for national ID cards there. And for the anomalous Sarkar family, their cards just have a stamp that says "no fingerprints." And since 2010, fingerprints have also been mandatory on driver's licenses and passports. Professor Peter Eiten, one of the men who first discovered the condition in his patients, nicknamed it immigration delay disease. And that's because entering countries where fingerprinting is mandatory, like the US, is an absolute nightmare for sufferers. But Professor Eiten also did observe that people with Adermatoglyphia also had fewer sweat glands on their hands than the average person. So if you suffer from sweaty palms, it's just one more point in the favor of this condition. Our next superpowered condition won't make it easier for you to commit crimes and get away with it, but it will make life feel just that much more trippy. Number 3. Synesthesia. Synesthesia is really less of a disease and more of a condition, but it is fascinating either way, and it gives you some superpowers that can really help you succeed in life. As we grow up and our brains develop, we undergo a process known as pruning, where some of our unnecessary neural connections are cut off, so different parts of our brain can specialize in what they do, kind of like pruning a garden. But in people with synesthesia, that pruning never happens, so instead you have brains where certain wires, figuratively speaking, are connected to where they wouldn't normally be, tethering 2 or more of your senses together. There are actually a huge number of subtypes of synesthesia that are essentially different possible combinations of your different senses. Some examples include auditory tactile synesthesia, where sounds can become physical sensations for you; day color synesthesia, where certain days of the week are tied to different colors in your mind; grapheme color synesthesia, where numbers, letters, and symbols are tied to certain colors; hearing motion synesthesia, where movements you observe are tied to certain sounds; mirror touch synesthesia, where when witnessing another person get touched a certain way, your brain mirrors the touch as though it's happening to you; and time-space synesthesia, one of the strangest, most difficult to describe, where you can see sequences of time as physical patterns in your mind. If you're not someone who experiences senses in this way, it can be almost impossible to even really picture how it feels. But it's not just an interesting novelty, science has shown that it can be genuinely useful. For starters, folks with different types of synesthesia have scored high on intelligence tests and have better memory recall than the average person in their specific area of focus. It seems that having a thought tied to multiple senses can help encode it deeper than being tied to just one. And synesthesia has also proven to be a boon for people searching for careers in art and entertainment. The novel conditions that senses form in your brain can help make you more unconventional when it comes to creativity. Famous creators with synesthesia include painter Vincent van Gogh, Lolita author Vladimir Nabokov, Pirates of the Caribbean actor Jeffrey Rush, and musicians like Billy Joel, Patrick Stump, Pharrell Williams, and Charlie XCX. And all that is pretty cool, but not nearly as cool as being a human octopus. Number 2. You ever feel like you didn't have enough hands or feet? Or if you had 4 arms, you could play 2-player games alone. Or if you had 4 legs, you could run faster, jump higher, and have a terrible time trying to buy pants. All of these advantages and struggles could be yours if you had Polymelia, which also has the incredibly metal alternate name Hydra syndrome. It's a type of birth defect where people are born with an unusually high number of limbs, often extra arms or legs, which continue to grow as they do. And while some of these limbs will be shrunken or non-functional, others will work just as well as your standard limbs. But again, they'll make it a real pain to buy clothes, so it might not be worth it. Eventually, there's a risk that you get tired of having almost all of these diseases. Except, well, maybe this next one. If you have the one at our number 1 spot, then you won't be getting tired at all. Number 1. Everyone's got limits, whether it's strength or energy, and if you're hoping to become truly superhuman, then those limits you need to ignore. Unless you're Dean Karnazes, an American ultramarathon runner with lactate dehydrogenase syndrome, a rare condition that has helped him do the unthinkable, like running for 3 days straight without stopping to sleep. Dean's secret is that his muscles don't ache. You see, your body is actively breaking down glucose for energy when you run, with the byproduct of this chemical reaction being lactate, which can also serve as an energy source. But you have a lactate threshold that puts a limit on the amount that your body can convert back into energy. Anything beyond that becomes a lactic acid buildup in your muscles that causes that distinctively awful post-workout ache. But people with lactate dehydrogenase syndrome don't seem to have a lactate threshold, so they can just keep on going, creating energy and never getting tired or achy as a result. Like almost everything else on this list, there are some pretty horrific downsides, including pain, cramps, muscle spasms, skin rashes, and even kidney damage. So maybe in the end, you're just better off being a regular, boring person. Think these conditions are wild? Just wait until you see what happens when the human body resists freezing or breaks down because of it. Check man resistant to cold and a man allergic to cold. Weird medical conditions. Or click on this video instead.